Shalom, Gracians, and those up there, shalom. Happy Mother's Day to all mothers this morning. Today and every day, we want to honor the incredible role of mothers and mother figures in our lives. We are celebrating you, someone who is special in the eyes of your family and God. Thank you, mothers. The last time I spoke here in Grace Bukit Batok was September 2023. Much has changed. We now have 2 services, and this service is almost full. In the last 20 months, I believe God is moving. And as such, we must move with God. First, make room for Him in our hearts, and then make room for others in the house of the Lord. So church, we need to rejuvenate Grace at Bukit Batok. Amen? #vote at ABM coming May. So once again, I thank God and I thank Pastor Wilson and campus pastors, Pastor Steve and Pastor Joey, for entrusting me with this pulpit. What more on Mother's Day? Some of you might already know I'm not a biological mother. The closest I have come is a godmother, an auntie, and a spiritual mother. And I'm a daughter who only has one mother. Some of us are blessed with 2 mothers, like Moses. In the first 40 years of Moses' life, he had 2 mothers who shaped his life. Jochebed, his biological mother, for the initial 3 to 5 years, and Pharaoh's daughter, the adoptive mother, in the remaining years. In the second 40 years of his life, Moses was in the wilderness before encountering God at the burning bush. So Moses had 2 mothers and a wilderness. And that's my sermon title this morning. The big idea is God's parenting plan is perfect. Now the plot begins. Part 1, the first 40 years of Moses' life. There are 3 main characters here. Jochebed, his biological mother, Pharaoh's daughter, his adoptive mother, and Moses himself. Let us look at the first character, Jochebed, who is Moses' mother, biological mother. To spare me from pronouncing her name, allow me to just call her Jo. Is that okay with you? Let us read Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 to 4. Now a man from the house of Levi went and took as his wife a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she took for him a basket. She put the child in it and placed it among the reeds by the riverbank. And his sister stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. The context of this story, we all know, is that the children of Israel has gone to Egypt to get grain during a severe famine. That was when Joseph who had risen to power as the second in command to Pharaoh, was reunited with his father Jacob and the very brothers who sold him into slavery much earlier. However, several generations later, a new Pharaoh came to power, one who did not know Joseph, nor remember how he saved Egypt, seeing that the Israelites multiplied greatly. This Pharaoh felt threatened and began to oppress them, turning them into slaves and ordering the killing of their male infants in an attempt to control the population. Pharaoh issued a command, first to the Hebrew midwives and then to all his people, that every boy born to the Hebrews shall be thrown into the Nile. It was during such times, such dark times, that Moses was conceived. When Moses was born, his mother saw a baby boy, of course. And she saw that he was a fine child. In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23, it says, Moses' parents saw that God has given them an unusual child. And in Acts chapter 4, 7, verse 20, it was recorded that Moses was beautiful in God's sight. Jo, Moses' biological mother, saw something special in her child. Mothers, when you look at your baby and your children today, what do you see? You might look at a baby and you say, how cute, how adorable, look just like me. But there is something very different about seeing the baby in the natural and also seeing the baby in God's eyes. If you see the baby in God's eyes, you will see your child as beautiful in God's eyes and as a child of destiny. Mothers, God not only has a special purpose and destiny for Moses, but God has a special destiny and purpose for every child. Mothers, this morning, God has a special purpose and destiny for your child. For your child. When you see this way, you will never underestimate your role as a parent. You will see God's given role to you as preparing your child to fulfill their destiny. Moses grew, and his mother could not hide him any longer. She put Moses in a basket, placed it among the reeds by the river bank, and as she released the basket, Jo trusted God with her child. By first trusting the Lord herself. Mothers, before you can trust God with your children, you must first trust the Lord yourself. Only when you first trust God yourself can you obey God rather than men. Only then you can trust God has a special purpose and destiny for your child. Only then can you trust God will protect your child even in impossible circumstances. Only when you first trust God yourself can you let go and entrust your children to Him, trusting Him to guide them in every single step. When I left Ipoh for my tertiary education, my mother sent me with her friend, who was also sending her son to the same university. I left home in my flip-flops because I forgot to wear my shoes. At the university registration counter, I was asked to go and put on a pair of shoes. From that moment, I stood on my own 2 feet, with or without shoes. These days, times have changed. Before my nephew went to university, he got to visit a few universities before he shortlisted a couple. When he finally entered university, his parents sent him stayed with him at the start. Some of you did same or will do same. Perhaps you have spent 16 to 20 years nurturing, caring, providing, protecting, and watching over your children. And then the day comes. The day comes when you have to release them to national service. Release them to study abroad or to live in college dorms. Letting your children go is never easy for a parent, but it is part of parenting. Mothers, it is part of your love and faith. And it doesn't happen just once. It happens again and again. Can you remember the first time leaving your child with a babysitter? Dropping them off at preschool, sending them to college or universities, and giving them away in marriage. Remember, your children are men and women of destiny. You just need to prepare them and let them go. Leave them in God's care and allow them to discover that destiny for themselves. Remember this. Even when you must let go, God never let go of your child. Joe had to let go of Moses, but by God's divine intervention, she got to nurse and nurtured Moses in his formative years. In the 3 to 5 years, she planted seeds of faith and identity in his heart and laid a foundation for his understanding of God's covenant with Israel. Like Joe, mothers, you are shaping future leaders, ministers, and world changers. Joe raised 3 children. The only daughter, Miriam, who watched over baby Moses in the Nile. She was the one who approached Pharaoh's daughter to suggest Joe as the nurse. Later, Miriam became a prophet, joined Moses in the Exodus, and led the women in worship and thanksgiving after crossing the Red Sea. Joe had an older son, Aaron, who later spoke on Moses' behalf. He was appointed as the first high priest of Israel, and of course, we all know, the youngest son, Moses. Joe's parenting shaped not just 1, but 3 children. All 3 children became leaders who played pivotal roles in Israel's history. Don't you want to raise children like Joe? Her story reminds us this morning of the importance of grounding our children in faith, encouraging their unique gifts, and trusting God to guide their future. Mothers, your influence matters. But are you trusting God with your children? Like Joe, release your worries into His capable hands, knowing that He loves your children more than you do. And now the second character, Pharaoh's daughter, Moses' adoptive mother. Let us read Exodus chapter 2, verses 7 to 9. Verse 7, then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call you a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. So the girl went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, listen to this, take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages. So the woman took the child and nursed him. We all know that Pharaoh's daughter played a part a significant part in Moses' development. She saw the basket, recognized it's a Hebrew baby, and had compassion for him. Despite her father's command to kill Hebrew baby boys, she adopted Moses and raised him as her own in Pharaoh's palace. Taking a suggestions from Moses' sister, the princess said to Joe in verse 9, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." I believe this morning, God is saying the same to every mother here, every father here. Take this child and nurse him for me, and I will give you your reward. God has entrusted children to you, but they belong to Him. And you will give an account to God for how you raise them. Yes, you may say that Pharaoh's daughter has all the power and resources as an Egyptian princess. But she defied her father's command. By adopting Moses, she gave him a unique position in the Egyptian society and access to the best education in Egypt, which shaped Moses into a man capable of standing before the Pharaoh, leading Israel in wisdom and right the law. Without her intervention, Moses would not have survived, let alone risen to prominence in Egypt. Some of you here, like me, are not biological mothers. You may be a godmother, a foster mother, an adoptive mother, or a spiritual mother. Listen, if God has placed a child in your care, you have a mission from God. If God has placed a child in your care, you have a mission from God. God unexpectedly gave me a goddaughter 10 years ago. Her parents were pre-believers then. When I first held her, I dedicated her to Jesus. Silently, I prayed in my heart that God would use her as the catalyst in the family's salvation and raise her to be a woman after God's heart. A couple of years later, her parents were baptized, and now all three of them are serving faithfully at Grace Assembly. Remember this: if God has placed a child in your care, you have a mission from God. So in the first 40 years of Moses' life, he had two mothers. Jo, his biological mother, gave Moses life, identity, and faith. And Pharaoh's daughter provided him with education, influence, and protection. Sounds like a perfect CV for any high-profile job application, right? But wait, now into the second 40 years of Moses' life, a plot twist takes place. Let's read Exodus chapter 2, verses 11 to 12 and 15. One day when Moses has grown up, he went out to his people and looked on their burdens. And he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his people. He looked this way and that means look left, look right. And seeing no one, he struck down the Egyptian and hit him in the sand. When Pharaoh heard of it, he sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh and stayed in the land of Midian, and he sat down by the well. Now, Moses was raised by two mothers, and with the best of both worlds, now makes a grave mistake. He kills an Egyptian in anger and runs for his life. Imagine with me, at that moment, did Joe feel like a failure? Did Pharaoh's daughter question her decision in adopting Moses? Jo, in her sorrow, might say, "My son, my boy has become a fugitive. In fear, she might have asked, will I ever see him again? In deep regret, she might have beaten herself up and moaned, did I fail to teach him patience, self-control? In guilt, she might question, was it my fault? Did I raise him to be too aware of his Hebrew roots or not enough? Let's imagine this in today's context. A mother received the news that her son has just parang someone. The very son she thought was born with good genes, shaped by a godly mother and educated in top schools in Singapore, has now made headlines. What do you think goes through the mother's mind? She might ask, what went wrong? What did I do wrong or not do right? Did I do enough? And perhaps shifting blame to the husband, whose side of the genes came out now. But what if this story isn't about your parenting, but about God's sovereign hand? Parents, especially mother, often guilt-trap themselves. Remember this, your children's mistakes are not your identity. God is still writing their story. You are responsible to raise and not to rescue. You shape your child, but God shapes the calling. And if you have the capacity to remove, to wipe off, to sapu off all your children's struggle, mistakes and failures, you know what? They will never need God. They would never have a reason to cry out to Him for themselves. They would never encounter the burning bush. As parents, you must know, you cannot control all outcomes and every single detail of your child's life. Mothers, you only need to give godly influence in the formation. Remember this, your children do not need a perfect mother. Your children do not need a perfect mother. They need a mother who loves God, who desires to be more like Jesus. They need a mother, together with their father, be their primary disciple maker. And they need a mother who shows up when they are in need. Your children do not need a perfect mother, neither does God expect. Instead, they come to know God through a broken mother who depends on a perfect God. They need to see faith-filled parents more than a mother who seeks perfection and tries to be perfect. Research has proven that who you are shapes how you parent, and how you parent shapes your child's behavior. When a mother seeks perfection and tries to be perfect, research has shown that her children are likely to grow up demonstrating a few common behaviors. They are likely to fear rejection and public criticism. Even a single and slightest negative comment can trigger strong negative emotions. Or they are likely to become people pleasers and hungry for affirmation. Some may live for and thrive on others' applause and acceptance and appreciation. And last but not least, they might have a high tendency to be overly critical and perfectionistic. And you know what? This is me. My grandmother and mother are both perfectionistic. They have very high standards, a strong sense of quality, and high precision. It is not easy to get thumbs up from them. This has shaped me to aspire for excellence. That's good. And hopefully my work is known for highest quality. That's good too. But it has also shaped me to be highly critical. And this often demoralizes those who can't and don't meet my benchmark. Listen, God never asks for flawless parents. He delights in faithful ones. Your child's journey is still unfolding, woven in both beauty and brokenness, progress and pain. When you are tempted to question, what did I do wrong? Shift your gaze and ask, what is God redeeming right now? When you wonder, was I ever enough? Rest in this truth. God is always more than enough. He's writing a greater story, and He's not done yet. And note this, a failure or a mistake is not the end of the story. God still has a plan. Even in his failure, God was not done with Moses. The wilderness season that followed was not a punishment. It was a preparation before his call was realized. It was part of his spiritual formation. When Moses flees to Midian, he was not just running from Pharaoh, but from himself. For 40 years in the wilderness, God parented Moses and works on his identity, his temperament, and timing. God did not reject Moses, he refined him. In the silence of the wilderness, God was not absent, but actively reshaping his servant. There, Moses was humbled from a prince of Egypt to the shepherd of sheep. He was healed from a man of impulsive anger to one of steady patience. And he was reoriented from chasing his own ambition to walking in full obedience. Friends, the wilderness was not a punishment. It was preparation. Remember this. Parenting can nurture, guide, and lay foundations, but parents are never meant to finish their children's story. Both Moses' biological mother and adoptive mother gave what they could, but neither could fully shape the man he was destined to become. When he killed the Egyptian, it wasn't just a moral failure, it was a turning point. And in that crisis, God stepped him in. Yahweh became his wilderness parent, refining what human hands could not complete. Two mothers and a wilderness. God's parenting plan is perfect. At 80, Moses now returned to Egypt, not to strike down another Egyptian in anger, but to stand before an empire in obedience. He no longer fights for his identity. He now walks in divine authority. He no longer acts from impulse. He now moves in step with God's precise instructions. He now knows and embraces God's ordained role for him as Israel's leader. His two mothers shaped the vessel, but even the finest pot we know cannot cook best soup without ingredients. It was God who filled Moses with purpose, with character, and with calling. the wilderness was not wasted. It was a preparation for a greater call. Your role as a mother is sacred. It is powerful. You are shaping the future, one prayer, one hug, one lesson at a time. And your motherhood may not need to look like someone else. You may be a stay-home mom, a working mom, a single mom, a grandma raising grandchildren, a godmother, a foster mother, an adoptive mother, or a spiritual mother. But hear this, God has placed a child in your care. You are on divine assignment. You are not called to control outcomes. You are called to trust God, the one who ordains all destinies. You are not just a caregiver. You are chosen, handpicked by God to mother the children in your life. Your role matters. Your obedience matters. Your legacy will echo in eternity. And listen to this. No matter where your children are in the journey, God is not finished with them yet. And God is not finished with you. His grace is enough. His strength will sustain you. So keep sowing, keep praying, keep trusting, because when you place your motherhood in the hands of God, it becomes a holy calling with eternal impact. And remember this, His grace will carry you. I believe what He's doing and what He's doing through your life. Shall we all stand at this moment? Let us take some moments to respond to God in action and not only in words this morning. There are two groups of people whom I want to speak to this morning. Mothers, you are chosen. You matter. And you are enough because God is more than enough. Your children do not need a perfect mother. Neither does God expect. When you place your motherhood in the hands of God, it becomes a holy calling with eternal impact. This morning, are you trusting God with your children? Are you trusting God with your own life? Ask God to show you new ways to influence your children for His purpose. Ask God to give you strength and wisdom to handle a difficult child situation. Mothers, come to the altar this morning. Lay your life before God and lay the lives of your children before God and say, yes, God, I want to trust you, the God who ordains all destiny. I do not need to try my best anymore because God's parenting plan is perfect. I choose to trust you. This morning, if that's what you want, I will not ask you to show your hand, but you just walk to the altar, meet God here, and speak to Him this morning. The second group that I want to speak to, no matter where your children's journey is, God is not finished with them, and God is not finished with you. Mothers, are you going through a wilderness yourself this morning? Fathers, are you going through a wilderness now? Wilderness is not a punishment. It is a preparation. It is part of spiritual formation. It is preparation towards your destiny calling. If only you trust God with your lives. This morning, I invite you also to come to the altar and say, Lord, I do not understand why, what, and how, but I want to trust you in my wilderness. I want to trust you in my wilderness, my spiritual formation and my destiny calling. Teach me, mold me, that I may be the disciple maker you want me to be for my children. As the worship team lead us in song, I now ask that all of you, if you want to say, yes, God, this is my desire, up in the gallery, walk down to the aisle now. Pastors and us will pray for you. Now, come on and meet God here.